The rain came fast and hard. Ethan had just set up his tent under a large tree on planet Arco 7. It was supposed to be a quiet night in the wild. He had food, a warm sleeping bag, and silence all around. The forest was strange but peaceful, with glowing leaves and soft animal sounds. But then the storm started, and the calm broke like glass. Lightning cracked above the trees. The wind shook the tent, and rain flooded the ground. Ethan zipped up his tent, curled into his blanket, and tried to sleep. But he heard something. At first, it sounded like wind, but then it became soft crying. He sat up and listened. There it was again. A small voice outside, mixed with sobs. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't sure if it was human or alien. Still, he grabbed a small light and unzipped the tent slowly. The cold rain hit his face, but he stepped out and followed the sound. Behind a fallen log, he found her, a small alien girl, no older than 18 in human years. Her skin was soft gray with faint purple lines across her cheeks. She had no tent, no coat, and her clothes were torn and wet. She shivered badly, her knees hugged to her chest, her eyes wide with fear. Ethan lowered his voice. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked gently. The girl didn't answer. She looked at him like he was going to hurt her. She backed up slightly, slipping. "In the mud, I'm not here to harm you," Ethan said, holding out his hand. "You'll freeze out here." She looked around, then up at the stormy sky. After a long pause, she slowly reached toward him. He led her back to the tent, holding the flap open. She entered, her steps unsure, her whole body trembling. Ethan gave her a towel and a thermal blanket. She wrapped it tightly around herself and sat in the corner, saying nothing. The inside of the tent was small, but warm. He offered her a food bar. She stared at it like it was made of gold. She took a small bite first, then another, until it was gone. She finally spoke in a quiet voice. "Thank you," Ethan smiled. "You're welcome." For a while, they sat in silence, the rain still hitting the tent roof. Ethan tried to ask her questions, but she didn't understand most words. He learned her name was Rila, and she had no family. She didn't say much more, only that she had been walking for days. When it was time to sleep, Ethan moved to one side and offered the other half of the sleeping mat. Rila hesitated but lay down slowly. Keeping the blanket around her, her eyes stayed open. Watching the tent walls, Ethan closed his eyes, trying to fall asleep, but just as he began drifting off, he heard her whisper something. Her voice was shaky, and she spoke in her own alien tongue. He didn't understand the words, but a moment later, she translated softly. "Please don't eat me tonight," she said. Her voice barely above a breath. Ethan's eyes flew open. "What?" he asked, sitting up straight. Rila quickly shook her head. Eyes wide. "No, not you, not you," she said. "Other ones, before." Ethan felt a cold chill not from the air, but from the meaning. She had stayed with others before him, and they had hurt her. She was afraid of him too, but had no choice in the rain. He felt sick inside. He spoke gently. "I won't hurt you, Rila, I promise." She looked into his eyes, searching for lies. After a few seconds, she slowly nodded and lay back down, still shaking, but less than before. Ethan lay down too, heart heavy. He couldn't sleep, not after hearing that. He kept thinking about the fear in her voice, about what she had survived, about what kind of world left a girl like her alone in the storm. As the rain faded and the tent grew quiet, Rila finally closed her eyes, but even then, her fingers stayed tight around the edge of the blanket. Like she still didn't believe she was safe, Ethan turned on his side and whispered, "You're safe now." He didn't know if she heard him, but he hoped she did. He didn't know that this was only the beginning, that the night would get even stranger, and that this lost alien girl was not what she seemed. Not at all. Ethan did not sleep much that night, even when the rain stopped. The storm inside his heart continued. He kept looking over at Ryla. The alien girl curled up in the blanket. She had stopped shaking, but her sleep was not peaceful. Her face would twitch, her fingers would clench the fabric tight. Like she was fighting something even in her dreams. Every few minutes, Ethan would turn and check the tent zipper. He had camped on this planet before, and it was usually safe. But tonight felt different. He could not forget what she had said. "Please don't eat me tonight." Those words kept echoing in his head, like a warning. Suddenly, he heard something again. Not thunder, not rain. Something else, a soft, scratching sound. Coming from outside the tent, like something was circling slowly, brushing against the walls. Ethan froze. He looked at Rilla. Her eyes were now open wide, full of fear. She put a finger to her lips and whispered, "Don't move." Ethan stayed. Still, barely breathing, the scratching got louder, now followed by a low growl. It was not an animal he recognized. He reached slowly for the flashlight. But Rilla shook her head violently and grabbed his hand. "No light," she whispered. "They see light." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel her grip trembling in his own. Who were they? What was outside their tent? The sound moved away for a few seconds. Ethan let out a breath. But then something heavy landed right on top of the tent. The fabric sagged inward from the weight, and both of them gasped. Rilla covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. Ethan held his breath, hoping it was just an animal passing by. Then the thing outside let out a noise as strange, clicking growl. Ethan had never heard anything like it before. He looked at Rilla and whispered, "What is that?" Rilla closed her eyes tightly. "They are called night eaters," she said. "They follow the smell." Ethan sniffed. He had cooked meat earlier. His eyes widened in panic. Was that what brought them here? "They can smell blood," she added, "or sadness." "Sadness?" Ethan asked, confused. She nodded. "They feed on weak hearts." He didn't know if she was serious or just afraid. But either way, he knew they had to stay quiet. The weight lifted off the tent after a few minutes. The scratching sounds faded. Ethan and Rilla stayed still for a long time. Finally, she whispered, "It's gone." Ethan sat up slowly, careful not to make noise. He looked at her. Her face was pale, her eyes red. She looked like someone who had survived a nightmare more than once. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Rilla didn't answer. She just looked down at her hands. Then she pulled out a small pendant from under her shirt. It was cracked, dusty, and had strange glowing lines on it. She rubbed her thumb over it gently. "This was my mother's," she said. "She gave it before she stopped speaking. Her voice broke, and she turned away. Ethan didn't ask more. He respected her silence. After a while, he said, "I'll keep watch. You can rest." Rilla looked at him again, her eyes softer this time. "You are not like the others," she said. Ethan smiled faintly. "I hope that's a good thing." She gave the smallest smile he had seen on her face. Then she lay down again. Ethan moved to sit by the tent entrance. Flashlight in hand, but off, the forest was quiet again. But now he knew it wasn't empty. Strange things lived here, things that moved in the dark and fed on pain. He thought about the night eaters, about their claws on the tent, but he thought more about Rilla. Why was she being hunted? Why was she so afraid? Why did she speak of sadness like it was a scent? The girl had secrets. And Ethan was beginning to understand this was not just about sharing a tent. This was the start of something much, much deeper, something that could change everything. The next morning, the forest looked peaceful again. Birds sang softly, and the leaves sparkled with drops of rain. It almost felt like the night before had been a bad dream. But Ethan knew better. He looked at Rilla as she slept with her back to him. Her body curled up tightly, arms wrapped around her broken pendant. She looked calm now, but her face still showed signs of fear. Dark circles under her eyes, dry mud on her cheeks. She had not come from safety. She had run from danger. Ethan stood outside the tent and stretched his arms. The ground was wet, and small prints led away from the tent. Animal prints, not human. Maybe the night eaters were real. Maybe they were still close. He didn't want to take any chances when Rila finally woke up. She looked confused, as if she didn't expect to be alive. "You stayed," she whispered. Ethan smiled. "Of course I did." Rila sat up, holding the blanket tightly. She looked around the forest like she expected to be hunted. Ethan crouched next to her, his voice gentle. "Can you tell me now what happened to you?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I was in a camp," she said. Her words broken but clear. "Big men with metal skin came. They took me." "Raiders?" Ethan guessed. She nodded. "They said I was special." Her voice trembled. "They kept me in a cage. Not to hurt me, but to sell me." Ethan's hands clenched. He could feel anger building in his chest. "They called me hybrid. They said someone will pay a lot." "Hybrid?" he asked. "What does that mean?" She touched her cheek where the purple lines were faint. "My father was from the royal blood. Mother from the fallen ones. Mixed blood is rare. Many want to own it." Ethan didn't know what shocked him more, that she was royalty, or that someone thought they could own her. "They put a chip inside me," Rila said, her fingers trembling, "to track me. Always know where I go." "Where?" Ethan asked. Already reaching into his bag for a small scanner, she pointed to her left shoulder. Ethan scanned it, and sure enough, there was a small metal tracker under the skin just beneath the surface, glowing faintly. "I can take it out," Ethan said, "but it will hurt a little." She didn't even blink. "Do it," she whispered. He used his tool carefully, cleaning the area. With slow hands and a small blade, he made a tiny cut and removed the chip. Rila bit her lip to stay silent. But a tear rolled down her cheek when the chip was out. She sighed like a heavy weight had left her soul. He placed the tiny device in a metal box and shut the lid tight. But as soon as he did, a soft beep came from the box. A red light blinked. "What's that?" Rila asked, her voice sharp with fear. "It just activated," Ethan said. He stared at the box, heart sinking. "They know we're here." Suddenly, a shadow passed over them. They both looked up. A small black drone hovered high above the trees, blinking red and blue. "It's scanning," Ethan said. He grabbed Rilla's hand. "We need to move." She didn't hesitate. They packed the tent quickly, leaving the rest behind. The drone followed them, silent and watching. "Why now?" Rila asked. Running beside him, I think the tracker was still linked. "Maybe it woke something up. We must hide," she said. "They won't stop until they find me." "Then we make them lose you," Ethan replied. "For good." They reached a small cave near the edge of the forest. Ethan had seen it on his last trip, hidden under thick vines. Inside, it was dark and cold, but safe, at least for now. Rila sat on the ground, breathing hard. She touched her shoulder where the tracker had been. Blood dried slowly on her skin. "Thank you," she said, "for removing it." Ethan nodded. "You're not property, Rila," he said. "You're a person." She looked at him strangely. "Most don't say that." "Well, I do," he answered. "And we're going to protect that truth from outside the cave." They could hear the drone buzzing again, searching, circling, calling others. Rila leaned back against the stone wall and whispered, "I thought I'd be alone forever." Ethan sat beside her. "You're not alone now," he said, "and I won't let them take you." She turned to him slowly. For the first time, she smiled, fully soft, hopeful, and glowing from within, but deep inside her. Old powers stirred, and soon Ethan would learn that helping her wasn't just kindness. It was fate. The cave was cold but dry. Ethan and Rila had escaped the drone. But danger was still close. They sat in silence, listening to the buzzing sounds above the forest. Every few minutes, the drone would fly by again. It was looking for them, searching with red lights through the trees. Rilla hugged her knees to her chest. Her body was weak, but her eyes stayed sharp. She had been hunted for too long to feel truly safe. Ethan placed a hand near the cave's entrance and looked outside. The sky was turning dark again, not because of a storm this time. It was something else. The light faded too fast. The air grew heavy, thick, almost hard to breathe. Even the birds had stopped singing. Rilla whispered, "Something is coming." Ethan turned to her. "What do you mean?" She shook her head. "I don't know, but I feel it." Suddenly, a sound echoed inside the cave. It didn't come from the entrance. It came from behind them, deep inside the rock. Ethan stood quickly. "No one's supposed to be in here," he said, reaching for his light. Rilla grabbed his arm. "Don't," she whispered. "Let it come." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, the back of the cave shimmered, like a wall of heat in the desert. Then, slowly, a shape walked forward through the stone without breaking it. It looked like a woman, but taller and glowing. Her hair floated like smoke, and her eyes were silver. She looked at Rilla and smiled gently. Ethan stepped in front of Rilla. "Who are you?" he asked, trying to stay calm. The glowing woman spoke with a voice that echoed without sound. "I am a watcher," she said. "I have waited for her." "For Rilla?" Ethan asked, confused. The woman nodded. "She carries a gift hidden in pain." Rilla stood slowly, her eyes wide but not afraid. She took a step forward. "I've seen you before," she said, "in dreams." The woman smiled again. "Because your blood remembers me." Ethan watched, unsure what was happening. The cave glowed slightly now, as if the stone itself responded to the visitor. The woman reached out and touched Rilla's forehead. A light passed between them, soft and warm. Then she pulled back and said, "The seal is weakening. Her true self will rise soon." "What seal?" Ethan asked. "What's happening to her?" The woman turned to him. "She is not just a girl," she said. "She is the last of the old bond. The child of a silent bloodline. She's a hybrid," Ethan said. "She told me that." The woman nodded. "Yes, but more than that. She was hidden for protection. Her power sealed when she was born." Ethan looked at Rilla. She stood frozen, her hands glowing faintly. A soft pattern appeared on her skin like tattoos. "But alive, she is not safe here," the woman said. "The ones who chase her want to use her power to bring war." "Then what do we do?" Ethan asked. "Where can we go?" The woman began to fade. Her body slowly turned to mist. "Protect her heart," she said. "Her light will awaken in the dark." And then she was gone. The cave returned to silence. Rilla dropped to her knees, breathing hard. Ethan rushed to her side. "Are you okay?" he asked, holding her shoulder. She nodded slowly. "I remember things now," she said. "Things I forgot." "Like what?" "My mother's voice," she said. "She sang to me about stars, about home, about who I am." The glow on her skin faded, but the air around her still felt warm. Ethan helped her sit down and wrapped her in the blanket again. "I don't understand everything," she said, "but I feel different now. You're stronger," Ethan said. Rilla looked at him, her eyes softer than ever. "No," she said. "I just feel real." That night, Ethan stayed awake, watching her sleep again. But something had changed, not just in Herbert and him too. She wasn't just a lost girl anymore. She was something important, something powerful. And now that the Watchers knew she was awakening, he knew others would come, not to help, but to take. And Ethan would have to decide what he was willing to do to protect her. The next morning, Ethan opened his eyes slowly. Sunlight came through the vines covering the cave entrance. The air was fresh and quiet again. He looked beside him, and Rilla was still asleep. Her hands were relaxed, her face calm, but something was different. There was a soft glow under her skin, not bright like last night, but like something living inside her. Ethan touched her forehead. She was burning hot. Not in pain, but her body was changing. Suddenly, her eyes opened. They were no longer dark gray, they were bright silver. She sat up quickly, breathing fast. "Like waking from a deep dream, Ethan," she said softly. "I saw things in my sleep." He leaned closer. "What things?" "Memories," she said. "From when I was small. Before the cage. Before I was taken." Ethan nodded slowly. "You remembered who you are." Rila looked at her hands. "Something is waking inside me," she said. "It listens to the world." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked. She stood up and stepped outside the cave. The forest was glowing slightly, like it was responding to her. She touched a tree gently, and its leaves shimmered. The birds nearby flew down and landed close to her feet. Ethan stood beside her, shocked. "You're connected to everything?" he whispered. Rila nodded. "I feel them," she said. "The trees, the ground, even the sky. It speaks without words." Ethan didn't know how to explain it. She wasn't just a girl anymore. She was becoming something powerful, something rare. They walked through the forest slowly. Rila moved carefully, stopping often to feel the air or touch the plants. It was as if the planet was showing her the path. When they reached a small pond, Rila sat on a rock and stared at her reflection. "Why me?" she asked. "Why do I have this?" Ethan sat beside her. "Maybe because you're strong enough to carry it," he said. She looked at him with a sad smile. "I don't feel strong. You are," he replied. "You survived more than anyone should." She stayed quiet for a moment, then said, "Do humans have gifts like this?" Ethan laughed a little. "No glowing hands or forest powers. But we have stubborn hearts." Rila smiled again, this time more real. "That might be stronger than any power," she said. As the sun moved overhead, they returned to the cave. Ethan cooked some food with the last of his supplies, while they ate. Rila asked questions, many questions. "What is Earth like? Do humans live in trees? Why do you help me?" Ethan answered them all with patience and honesty. But when she asked the last question again, he paused. "I help you," he said, "because no one else did. Because you deserve kindness." Rila looked down at her food. "No one has ever said that to me," she whispered. That evening, the cave filled with a strange light. Not from outside's but from Rila. Her body started glowing again, stronger this time. Her breathing changed. Faster and deeper, she fell to her knees, holding her chest. "Rila," Ethan called. Rushing to her side, she didn't speak. Her eyes were closed, her body shaking. He placed his hand on her back, and suddenly his mind was pulled into a vision. He saw her memories, her birth under 2 moons, her mother singing while holding a baby wrapped in golden cloth. He saw the cages, the beatings, the hunger. He saw her escape through rain and fire, barefoot and bleeding. Then he saw her standing tall, older, powerful, leading others like her. He gasped and pulled his hand back. Rila opened her eyes slowly. Tears rolled down her face, but she smiled. "I remember it all," she said. "I was meant for more." Ethan sat beside her, breathing hard. "What did I see?" he asked. "My truth," she said. "You saw who I am." She wiped her tears and stood again. "The power is not a curse. It's a promise." Just then, a loud boom echoed through the forest. They looked at each other, wide ships. Rila said, "They found me." Ethan stood quickly. "Then we need to move now." But Rila grabbed his arm. "No," she said. "This time, I won't run." Ethan stared at her. "Are you sure?" She looked at the glowing trees, the sky above, and her own hands. "I'm not normal anymore." She said, "I was never meant to be." And for the first time since they met, they then believed she might. Be unstoppable. The sound of the ship echoed again. It was getting closer. Ethan and Rila stood at the cave's edge, looking toward the trees. A soft wind blew through the forest. But the animals were gone. The forest had gone quiet, too quiet. "They are here," Rila said, her voice calm but steady. Ethan checked his small scanner. 3 ships had landed on the planet, not far from them, and something even worse. A group of 10 armed men were moving their way. "They're tracking your scent. Maybe your energy, too," Ethan said. Rila didn't answer. She was breathing slowly, eyes closed, as if listening to something far away. Ethan turned to her. "We can run again," he said. "There's still time," but she shook her head. "I'm done running," she whispered. Ethan knew she had changed. She wasn't the scared girl in the rain anymore. Something inside her had awakened on. It was strong. "I need you to trust me," she said, looking at him. "I don't know what will happen next, but I need you here. I'm not leaving." Ethan said without thinking. Her eyes softened. "Then, don't be afraid," she whispered. They stepped into a clearing in the forest. The sunlight hit her skin, and suddenly, something happened. The marks on her arms began to glow bright. Her hair moved like it was underwater, floating slowly. The wind rose, swirling around her like a small storm. Ethan stepped back, eyes wide. Then came the sounds, shouting. Metal boots running through leaves. The raiders had arrived, armed with blasters and shields. They saw Rila and paused, confused. "That's her," one of them shouted. "She's changed," another said. "What is she doing?" Ethan moved beside Rila, but she raised her hand. "Stay there," she said softly. The leader of the raiders stepped forward. He was tall, his face covered in armor. "We've come to collect property," he said coldly. "She doesn't belong to you." Ethan snapped. The leader ignored him. "Activate the suppressor," he ordered. One of the men pulled out a device and pressed a button. A loud pulse shook the air. Rila fell to her knees, holding her head. The glow around her dimmed for a second. Ethan rushed to her. "Rila," he said, "are you okay?" She looked up, her eyes glowing brighter now. Then she whispered, "Don't touch me. I have to let it out." Ethan stepped back again, unsure what she meant. Suddenly, her body lifted into the air. The ground beneath her cracked, small roots growing fast and wrapping around her feet. The trees around the clearing bent toward her. Like bowing, the air turned warm, the sky darker. Rila opened her eyes and she was no longer just a girl. Her form shifted, becoming taller, her skin shining like crystal. Wings made of light opened behind her, and her voice echoed in the forest. "I am not your prize," she said. "I am the seed of stars, the last of the bond." The raiders stepped back in fear. "Shoot her," the leader shouted. Blasters fired, but the shots stopped in midair, held in place by invisible force. Then, slowly, the shots turned around and flew back. Knocking down the men, one by one, the raiders fell. Crying out in fear, the trees closed in tighter, the roots grabbing the rest of them. Only the leader was left standing, frozen in fear. He tried to run, but a giant tree root rose and stopped him. Rila floated down slowly, her light fading to a soft glow. She looked at him with calm eyes. "You hunted me," she said. "Now the forest has judged you." The root pulled him away into the trees. His screams fading, silence returned. Rila stood in the middle of the broken clearing. Ethan walked to her slowly, amazed. Her glowing skin faded. Her wings disappeared, and she collapsed. He caught her in his arms. Her body was warm, her breathing soft. "Is it over?" Ethan asked. "For now," she whispered, "but others will come." Ethan held her close. "Then we'll face them together." She looked into his eyes. "Why do you care so much?" she asked. "Because you're not just some strange girl from the forest," he said. "You're someone worth fighting for." She closed her eyes with a tired smile. And you're the first to ever say that? The forest was silent. Ethan held Rilla close as the first stars appeared in the sky. Her breathing was steady now, but the danger was not gone. The raiders had retreated, but they would not give up. They wanted her power, and they would come back. Stronger and faster. Ethan looked at Rilla. She was tired, but her eyes shone with a new strength. I won't run anymore, she said. I will fight. Ethan nodded. We'll face them together. Suddenly, a sound came from the trees, a low growl, then a rush of movement from the shadows. A large beast appeared. It was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. The beast had scales that glowed like embers. Its eyes were bright gold, and its claws dug deep into the earth. It walked with power and grace, but there was something calm in its gaze. Rilla smiled softly. This is my friend, she said. The guardian of the forest. Ethan watched as the beast came closer. It stopped in front of Rilla and lowered its head. She reached out and touched its snout. The beast growled softly in response. Ethan felt a strange peace wash over him. This creature was not dangerous. It was protecting them. The night grew darker, and the forest seemed alive with energy. Rilla stood tall, her glowing markings shining faintly in the moonlight. She looked at Ethan. Thank you for saving me, she said. For trusting me, Ethan smiled. You saved me too, he replied. More than you know. Suddenly, the raiders appeared again. They had returned with more weapons, more men. They shouted, demanding Rilla come with them. But Ethan stood in front of her, ready to fight. The battle began. Ethan used his traps and quick thinking. He set fires and led the raiders into the thick forest. Rilla called on the forest itself. The trees moved, the roots rose, and the animals helped. Together, they pushed the raiders back. One by one, the men fell or fled. The forest was alive with power, and at the center was Rilla. Shining like a star, when the last raider ran away, Ethan and Rilla stood together. Breathing hard but victorious, Ethan looked at her and said, This night changed everything. Rilla smiled and nodded. Yes, it did. She reached out and took his hand. I don't want to be alone anymore, she said. Will you stay with me? Ethan squeezed her hand. I will, he said. From now on, you won't be alone. The stars shone above as they walked back to the cave. The forest around them was quiet and safe, for now. But Ethan knew their journey was only beginning. With Rilla's power and his courage, they could face anything. The weirdest night of his life had become the most important, and together they would write their own story.